Hi everybody, so today we're having a look at intertextuality, okay? It is a really big word and it sounds a bit scary, but once we go into it and have a look at what it actually means, you'll see that you guys actually use this all the time. All right, a lot of movies that you see use intertextuality and a lot of books that you read. So let's have a look. So your goals are to understand what intertextuality is today, okay, and to have a look at the different sort of types of intertextuality, looking mainly at adaptations. So at the end, you should be able to define what an adaptation is, and you need to understand the reasons why old texts are used and changed in order to make new texts, okay, which is what intertextuality is pretty much. Okay, so here's a definition for you. Intertextuality just means the relationship between texts. It relates to how we understand the meaning of one text because of its relationship to another. Okay, so a lot of the time it's where a text, an original text, is used in a new text. So let's have a look at the word inter. So if we break it up into two bits, we've got inter, and then the next bit we're really interested in is the text bit. As you get older, we'll look at the rest of it. But just for today, we're having a look at the inter and the text. Okay, so let's look over here. Inter. Okay, as a definition, let's have a look at these words. We've got the word between, among, mutually, together, during. Okay, so all of these words that kind of link back to this definition. Two texts and their relationship between each other, the relationships among different types of texts, okay? And the texts that we look at are films, novels, picture books, poems, websites, plays, short stories, and there are heaps of others that you guys probably know of. Now there's a few words as well that as we look at what intertextuality does, I'm going to, keep bringing up, okay? So some of those words are words like these ones: reimagine, interpret, retell, borrow, reuse, reinterpret, and adapt. Now most of those words you guys already know, okay? So maybe some of you are already getting an idea of what intertextuality is, but even if you're not, once we have a look at some of the examples, you will completely get it, okay? It's really easy once you know. Okay, so intertextuality is like this big term that sort of looks at a lot of different types of texts and a lot of different ways to use intertextuality. One of those ways is through adaptations, another is parodies, another is allusion, and there are quite a lot of other ones. But just for today, because you're in year 7, you're going to be looking at adaptations. Okay, as you get older, you'll do these other ones. But adaptations is the main one. Now, most of you, have a think now, what do you think an adaptation is? Okay, have a think back to different films that you might have watched, different versions of different characters that you might have seen in different films. That all leads back into this overall idea of intertextuality. Okay, so these are really modern ideas of what intertextuality can do. The meme, okay? So here we have a picture of Shakespeare, and on the top of it, over the top, we have this writing. You think he has no swag? He invented the word. Actually, he did. Shakespeare invented a whole bunch of words. Swagger was one of them. Okay, so we've got this really old image here, and over the top, we've got all this new writing or new text. Okay, so what it's doing is bringing together two texts to make one new meaning, okay, and it's supposed to be humorous and funny. And it also teaches you a little bit about Shakespeare. Here's another one, okay, so these are really like modern ways of using intertextuality. We've got Boromir from Lord of the Rings, and I think the original quote from the movie is, "One does not simply walk into Mordor." And in this instance, they've changed the text to say, "One does not simply search Google Images for memes." Well, actually they do, because that's what I've been doing pretty much all day today. But you can see it changes the meaning of the actual text. And again, it's supposed to be humorous by putting together an image from the film with text that someone else has written over the top to try and be funny. Last one. All right. We have this really famous image called The Girl with a Pearl Earring, which was done hundreds of years ago by an artist, Dutch artist. And it's a really famous painting. It's supposed to be really mysterious and beautiful, which she is. And it's really iconic. But in modern times, people have been taking this photo and making sure that it means new things by adding things to it. So one way of doing that, to make it more modern, would be to make sure this girl is taking a selfie. Now you guys know what that means because you live in a modern context, okay? So you can see how an old text has been taken and changed or adapted to make sure it fits with modern ideas of what, you know, a portrait might be, because we all take our own portraits now, we don't get them painted. And finally we have Marge from The Simpsons, okay? The Simpsons used adaptation, they use intertextuality and all sorts of adaptations all the time, okay? So adaptation, which is the word that you guys are going to be using when you're looking at the text that you're doing in class, occurs when one text is taken and is reimagined to create a new text. Okay, an adaptation can be a retelling of a story, but no adaptation can ever be completely true to the original. Now, this is because no story is ever told in the same way by the same person or by different people. You guys would tell a story differently to what I would because we're just different people. We have different language and different ideas. So an adaptation can never ever be the same as what it was before, which is why, or as what the original text was, which is why we call it an adaptation. It can borrow elements of an old text to create a new story, okay, with new meanings for new audiences. Adaptations are important because they take older texts and reuse the storyline or characters to present themes and ideas that are relevant for us, okay? Down the bottom here we've got Little Red Riding Hood, okay, so there's an original text and all these different adaptations of elements of Little Red Riding Hood which have been taken out to make it more interesting for modern audiences. Okay, so that's all an adaptation is, and that's what you guys are going to be looking at in class. Here's another example, one of the most widely adapted texts ever. Okay, we've got Cinderella. So starting up the top here, we've got the Grimm's Brothers version, which is actually really gross and gruesome. So Disney took that version and changed it into a fantastical, sort of very pretty film or cartoon animated film. And then we move on through all these motion pictures where basically the character is the one link between all of them. Okay, the character usually starts out in her horrible surroundings and somehow changes, meets her prince, or in some cases meets a different man. But in every retelling, there's something new about it, even though it uses that same character and sometimes the same storyline. And every story is meant, or every adaptation is meant to mean something new for an audience. Okay, so there we have a lot of different adaptations. Next one is Thor. Okay, so starting up here, we've got our original Norse sort of myth. Okay, so Thor was this Norwegian god. God of thunder, had his hammer, so all that stuff remains the same. God of lightning sort of thing, the storm, and over here we have an 1800s painting, so already the old story has been adapted in a painting, okay, to show new ideas through the 1800s. Then in the 1960s, we had Thor here, okay, who was a comic hero. Then they turned him into a TV series, okay, as technology changed. So there's a change in context. So they're adapting for new audiences. And down here, because, you know, we've got modern audiences who like to go to the movies and we like special effects and all that sort of thing, they've created new versions of Thor. Finally, Thor is now part of the Avengers as well, okay? So we've got a whole bunch of really cool superheroes in there. So all of these are adaptations of this one original story, okay, which is 1,000 years old. All right, now finally, why do we bother with intertextuality? Why do you have to learn about it at school? Well, as you've seen through just some of those pictures that I showed you before, you guys will have seen a lot of those films. So intertextuality is kind of important for you in everyday life. A lot of the films that you see use ideas from other texts, okay? And a lot of them are adaptations of old stories that we just might not know about. And it's important that you do know about them and how those messages change over time. Okay, so you will come across different forms of intertextuality all the way through English at school and in your everyday life. We do 10 Things I Hate About You, which is based on a Shakespeare story, The Taming of the Shrew. You do that in Year 9. In Year 7, we do The Great Escape and Chicken Run. In Year 11, a lot of kids do Dracula, okay, and a lot of its different versions. Macbeth and Viram, which is an Indian movie. Okay, so this goes across continents and across countries as well. It's not just for one specific audience, which is why it's important to look at how texts change, because it tells you a lot about what people are like at the time. Okay, it's an important concept because it allows us to transform old stories into new ones, which teach us important messages both about the past and about our own world. Okay, so that's intertextuality. Adaptations is the thing that you guys are going to be really concentrating on, particularly when we do The Great Escape and Chicken Run. So that's it for now, and enjoy filling out your sheet. All right, thanks guys. Bye.